One of the arcs that I sort of ignored on my first read through of A Song of Ice and Fire, but really appreciated when I was rereading all of Bran's chapters in order, is the arc of Maester Luwin and his relationship or belief in magic. In both the books and the show, he's the guy who has to sort of try and talk sense into Bran Stark, this kid who believes in all this magic and fairy tales and stories of the children of the forest and their wizards and the magic that they could do, and he basically has to sit Bran down and be like, look, magic isn't real. I thought magic was real when I was your age. That's why I went and studied it at the Citadel, and he shows him that he's got the Valyrian Steel Link, which means that you went and studied magic or the higher mysteries. And most maesters don't get this link because most maesters, it seems, think that magic is not real, but Lewin definitely believed. And in all of his studies, he was firmly convinced that childhood Maester Lewin had been wrong. Magic is in fact not real, and he's very confident of that now as a man of science in this world, and he sits Bran down and basically tells him as much. Maybe magic was once a powerful force in this world, but no longer. This gets more interesting though then when over the course of his and Bran's story, he is constantly just being presented with more and more evidence that he's wrong about this, and that in fact magic is indeed real on some level in this world. Just to take a look at a few of these interactions between Bran and Luwin, in Bran 6, he says, I want to learn magic. The crow promised that I would fly. Maester Luwin sighed. I can teach you history, healing, herb lore. I can teach you the speech of ravens and how to build a castle, and the way the sailor steers his ship by the stars. I can teach you how to measure the days and mark the seasons. At the Citadel in Old Town, they can teach you 1,000 things more. But Bran, no man can teach you magic. The children could, Bran said. The children of the forest. Bran then remembers that he had been talking with Osha in the Godswood, and she told him that Robb is marching the wrong way and that he should be taking his men north to fight off the others who are coming back. And Lewin says that the wildling woman could give old Nan a lesson in storytelling, and that Robb shouldn't be bothered with such things. He needs to worry about the Lannisters and what's going on with their father down in King's Landing. So, again, being sort of dismissive of this magic and these things that we end up finding out later are definitely real. Also, there was the time when Benjen was reported missing at Winterfell when they first find that out. Bran instantly speaks up and says, the children of the forest will help him, thinking of old Nan's stories of the last hero being helped by the children of the forest. And Lewin says again, basically, Bran, the children of the forest haven't been real for thousands of years, you shouldn't be believing in these things. Another case where we know by now that Maester Luwin was wrong. But I think this really starts to maybe hit home for Maester Luwin in Bran 7 A Game of Thrones when they have dreams, both Bran and Rickon have dreams that Ned Stark has died. And Bran really wants to go down and see the crypts because in his dream he was talking to his father down in the crypts. And Maester Luwin's like, that's ridiculous, your father's still alive. He may have been taken prisoner, but he hasn't died yet and he won't for many years. But Bran is convinced, and so Maester Luwin and Osha take him down to the crypts just to be sure, and when Maester Luwin holds the torch into the empty, tomb where he said that he saw his father, he says, see, there's no one here, and instantly gets his arm bitten by Shaggy Dog, because Shaggy and Rickon had made their way down there again, because Rickon also was looking for their father. He said that he knew his father was down there, and so this becomes like a whole big thing where they're talking about how, oh, you can't be believing all these dreams, this is just crazy talk, it's magic shenanigans, basically, is what Lewin is telling them. And then by the end of the chapter, they get the note that is coming from King's Landing saying that Ned has died. And they know what the note is before it even gets there, and I think this is the first time Maester Lewin really starts to doubt, like, oh, hey, wait a minute. Both of these kids claim that they had prophetic dreams talking about their father being dead and meeting with him down in the crypts. And then that same day, we get news that their father is indeed dead, which means he's been dead for at least a little while. So, yeah, I think even if you're the most skeptical person in the world, at this point, you would start to suspect that something might be up. It's interesting because it's at this point, once Maester Lewin's been bitten by Shaggy Dog and they find out that Rickon had the same dream and that he knows their father's coming home, that they go back up to Maester Lewin's room so he can get bandaged up by Osha, and he's still trying to tell them, spells and magic aren't real, I wish they were because it would heal my arm faster, and he's trying to tell them history about the children of the forest and how they've been dead for thousands of years, and he even says that anyone who trusts in spells is dueling with a glass sword just like the children did, and look at all the good that that did them. They're gone now. This is where we get a bunch of history of the Children of the Forest, and we learn about dragon glass, and Luwin shows off a few dragon glass arrowheads and says the Children of the Forest used to hunt with these, and Osha says that they still do. But then the raven arrives on the windowsill, and Rickon starts crying, drops his dragon glass arrowheads that he was given, and Bran hugs him close, and Maester Luwin looks at the bird, quote, like a scorpion with feathers, because I think all of them, as I said, know what this message is going to say. And Maester Luwin doesn't even say it out loud, he just says, "We'll need to find a stone carver who knew his likeness well." So, as I said, at that point, it's pretty hard to be skeptical about these dreams at least being somewhat prophetic. He's been doing his best at this point to remain a man of science and take all the things that he learned in the Citadel about how magic can't possibly be real, but at the same time, he is now sort of being faced with the inevitable proof that no, wait, Bran is having these weird dreams that I've been telling him are nothing, and now I'm starting to see that maybe these dreams aren't in fact nothing. He doesn't quite give up on this idea that magic isn't real just yet, though, because in A Clash of Kings is when we get the conversation about his Valyrian steel link. Luwin slid a finger up under his collar and began to turn it inch by inch. He had a thick neck for a small man, and the chain was tight, but a few pulls had it all the way around. "This is Valyrian steel," he said when the link of dark gray metal lay against the apple of his throat. "Only one maester in 100 wears such a link. This signifies that I have studied what the Citadel calls the higher mysteries. Magic, for want of a better word. A fascinating pursuit, but of small use, which is why so few maesters trouble themselves with it. All those who study the higher mysteries try their own hand at spells soon or late. I yielded to the temptation too, I must confess it. Well, I was a boy, and what boy does not secretly wish to find hidden powers in himself? I got no more for my efforts than 1,000 boys before me, and 1,000 since. Sad to say, magic does not work." So Maester Luwin is still at this point pretty much thinking that magic isn't real because, well, he's tried himself and he was never able to do anything magic. He studied it at the Citadel, and all of the things that he learned didn't lead to him producing any magical spells, so it definitely can't be real. This is some relatable stuff for Maester Luwin because he's right. What young boy doesn't want to secretly find special powers in themselves? I know when season 1 of Avatar The Last Airbender came out, I did concentrate pretty hard and see if I could maybe try some airbending. And obviously, I had to eventually decide that this didn't work. So it would be kind of weird, and I don't know how I would react if, when I'm 60 years old, I have to babysit some kid, and I have to constantly be telling him, no, you can't fly, airbending isn't real, then one day he and his brother both bust out a cool kung fu move they learned and blow something off the desk across the room, and I have to be the one sitting there going, "Okay, no, there's gotta be some other explanation for this. Airbending is still not real. You guys can't airbend. There's gotta be some other explanation for this. We're gonna figure out what's going on." And that's basically the situation that Maester Luwin has found himself in his early arc in Game of Thrones and Clash of Kings. Alternatively, I definitely wanted Pokemon to be real when I was a little kid, and I was just hoping maybe if I went and looking in the woods far enough, I could maybe find a Pikachu. And obviously, I never did, but then imagine you have someone from far away being like, oh no, north of the wall, there's Pikachus everywhere. That's basically what happens when Osha shows up, and he's constantly telling her, hey, you shouldn't be filling these kids' head with lies. They were very nice to take you in and not kill you. Don't you owe them to be a little bit kinder than to fill their heads with nonsense? But of course, by the point that we're at in the books now, we know that pretty much everything Osha said about North of the Wall and the Children of the Forest still existing, well, all of it is true. So Luwin is trying to convince Bran that magic isn't real, which he's wrong about. He's trying to say that the Children of the Forest don't exist anymore, which he's wrong about. And he's trying to tell Bran that his dreams are only dreams, which of course he is wrong about. And it gets harder for him to believe that when Jojen shows up at Winterfell and is also having these prophetic dreams. We do get at least a little hint that maybe Maester Luwin is doubting himself a little bit about this when Bran says that the sea is coming here. Jojen saw it in a green dream, Alebelly's going to drown. It says, Maester Luwin tugged at his chain collar. The Reed boy believes he sees the future in his dreams, Sir Roderick. I've spoken to Bran about the uncertainty of such prophecies, but if truth be told, there is trouble along the stony shore. Raiders in Longship plundering fishing villages. So here Maester Luwin is sort of forced to admit, well, this dream I've said is unreliable, but at the same time, there is a lot of trouble going on near the sea. So at some point, it seems like Maester Luwin isn't as dismissive about all of this as he possibly could be. I think that over the course of Luwin's arc, you can definitely see the firmness of his conviction that magic isn't real just being chipped away by one event after another. And I think it all hits home, and finally we get to see what Luwin really believes when it comes time for him to die. As they find Luwin in the Godswood on their way out of Winterfell, it says, on the edge of the black pool beneath the shelter of the heart tree, Maester Luwin lay on his belly in the dirt. A trail of blood twisted back through the damp leaves where he had crawled. Summer stood over him, and Bran thought he was dead at first, but when Mira touched his throat, the maester moaned. Hodor? Hodor said mournfully. Hodor? And then they ease Luwin onto his back, and they get the scene where he asks Sosha to finish the job, basically. But basically, this idea that Maester Luwin, who didn't believe in magic this entire time, spends what last little bit of energy he has trying to crawl to the magic tree so that he can die there, I think kind of gives us the little hint that we need that by the end of Maester Luwin's life, his doubt that magic is real has basically completely faded, and he's willing to believe that, yeah, maybe there is in fact some power in these old gods and this magic that he once believed wasn't real, so much so that he spends the last little bit of energy crawling in agony over to the magical tree to die next to it. So, a sad end to an arc, but an arc that I think is really a very interesting one and a really cool one because it sort of reflects how all of us would feel if we were sort of given proof late on in our life that magic ended up being real this entire time, or magic was coming into the world or returning to the world in some way that we all believed was not possible. I do think that's one of the really cool benefits of the way that George has structured this world where magic is going through a resurgence because it allows it to feel like the real reaction that many of us would have to a world where dragons are being reborn and suddenly kids are being able to skin change into wolves. Let me know what you guys think of any of that down there in the comments, and make sure to like and subscribe while you're down there. Do you think that Maester Luwin believed in magic again by the time that he died, or do you think he died skeptical and was just crawling next to the weirwood tree for some other reason? Do you enjoy watching Maester Luwin, a man of science, trying to tell this kid that magic isn't real as he very clearly starts to develop magical powers that end up proving to be very real? I certainly do. Let me know what you guys think of all of that. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll be back with something else very soon.